All right, you're being recorded.
Okay.
So I am going to ask you a question and then I'll go on mute so that it doesn't pan to me if I make a noise or something like that. Um, so just a refresh when I ask a question, sort of lead up to it in your answer. So the first question is about, I'll ask about what does the U.S. Green Building Council do, and you'll say the U.S. Green Building Council, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Here we go. Um, so, can you tell us about the U.S. Green Building Council?
Okay. So the U.S. Green Building Council is a 501c3 nonprofit based out of Washington, D.C., which was started 20 years ago in 1993. And basically, it's a nonprofit committed to the prosperous and sustainable future for our nation through cost-efficient and energy-saving green buildings. We essentially are focused very much on the green building space, and we've been working on transforming the way we design, build, maintain, and operate our buildings, homes, and communities. So that's our primary focus, and the entire organization is structured around going after that mission. And we've got 250 staff members that we have. You know. In the organization, but we also have almost another 200 close contractors and volunteers that we work with on a regular basis. And then we've got a volunteer base which goes beyond 200,000 people that are involved in the industry working with us. So it's a pretty vast network that we have that the small team here supports the entire mission and the moving the green building industry forward.
Okay. Well, that really helps. I've been talking to Nathan a little bit, and I know what you guys are doing from the new signature project side, but I think that that was a great explanation that anybody coming in without having exposure to you already would have a good
Yeah, and in
understanding.
fact, there's one more piece I'd like to add there,
Okay.
which is, so U.S. Green Building Council, we as an organization have created and we manage and maintain the LEED Green Building Certification Program, which is, what people are more familiar with because that's the name by which people recognize a building as being green and efficient. And we've got almost 56,000 lead projects worldwide. So it's a pretty widespread program, and a lot of buildings are participating in that. And we've got many more coming along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're actually in a LEED certified building in
Oh,
Denver.
nice.
Mhm.
Awesome.
So, what is your role at USGBC?
My role at US Green Building Council is I'm basically the director of technology, and I'm responsible for all technology related initiatives that happen at the organization, from the operational end of things to maintaining and managing the key business specific platforms that we have developed in house for managing the LEED certifications and our websites.
And how did you, how did you even come across the U.S. Green Building Council? How did you get into this role?
So I actually started as a consultant here. I was brought in to help out with one of the specific programs that we have, which is Lead Online. That's our primary, business platform that we use to engage with our customers. And I was brought in, given my experience in working with large enterprise projects, and so I got involved, and then I was offered a role here to continue helping out with managing different IT initiatives, and that's how I started, and then eventually I moved up to take responsibility for the entire department.
That's awesome. I love that story. So, what was the situation like before the migration? Are there specific challenges or issues that you were having?
So before the migration, we essentially were in this phase where we had a lot of um, platform evolution that had happened, from an operational end over the years, and we had just been kind of doing everything in-house, and we started looking at what are the options outside of what could be done, not in-house, but then how where are benefits that we could achieve by moving things away from our environment, and that's really where I started looking into all the different options for moving things into the cloud, what could work in a hybrid way, something on-prem, something in the cloud. And it's there's a lot of information out there, but at the end of the day, you don't really learn anything because it's just a lot of stuff which is at a high level, but then we don't really get detailed analysis of what would it mean, what would it take for us to do something and move into a different paradigm. So that's where a lot of my time went, going back and forth and identifying, do we really want to do this or not. And then there was also quite a significant push coming from a management side to kind of reduce our level of risk and liability that we are holding within our data centers with regards to all the data, all the documents, all the emails that we're capturing, making sure that they're getting backed up properly, archived. Anytime there's a question that comes up to say, is this, can we put a legal hold on an email because there's a question that came up from the legal department. So those kind of things were becoming a management day-to-day
Okay.
I think it's still being recorded, at least.
There we go. Yep, resuming.
Okay, so
we
I think I got cut off somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Do you want me to start all over, or?
Could you? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, I don't even remember what I was doing. All right, so.
You had just finished talking about cost-cutting measures.
So you want me to just continue from that
Yeah,
area? Yeah, okay. So we were looking at other challenges, operational challenges that we were having as an organization, where I was getting more and more requests to say, how do we make sure that our legal liability is kept under check? How do we make sure that we've got the backups happening properly? And all of those things were kind of becoming a headache and a nightmare scenario for me, that okay, what happens if my backup goes down, or what happens if something is not done in time? Are we going to lose data? And so that whole liability was a big question mark, and that's really when I started looking at what are other solutions out there. How do I increase my resilience in terms of being able to respond to any of these situations? And also, there was some questions that were coming from the legal department as they went through their own analysis of what is their exposure and risk in terms of what would happen. Let's say we get called, let's say there is some question that comes up that the legal department has to be involved. What is our turnaround time to put a legal hold on a mailbox and not have any mails being deleted because there are some things in question? So that kind of triggered a lot of this research to say, okay, what are the tools out there that we can use? What would be a good solution? So that was one of our driving forces behind looking at expanding the kind of toolkit we have on-prem. And after looking at that, it kind of started to make more sense to be more serious about Office 365, because all of this came packaged and it was designed for those exact operational items, and that's really where it started to become more and more of a lucrative solution that we wanted to look at more seriously. And so I started. Actually, do you want me to just keep going with the story, or?
Yeah, sure, keep going.
Do you want to do it in a question answer way?
No, I mean, I think now you're going to launch into what else you were considering.
Exactly.
Right? That's exactly where I'm going.
That and how we got started with the whole process here.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, when I got to that point, I started looking at what are the options out there. We weren't very keen on looking further into things like Google services, simply because most of our environment has been built around Microsoft services. We've been Microsoft oriented IT department for quite a while now. And even though like we've expanded beyond Microsoft technologies in the recent past, but still operationally, it's the connections between Outlook and Office and Active Directory, all of that is so deeply embedded into our environment that it just did not make sense to rip everything apart, go towards something like Google services where they require everything to be Google, and that was just kind of a big headache. So we wanted to look at what Microsoft has to offer. So I got into conversations with Microsoft, and like I said, because we've had long relationships with Microsoft for a long time, I have regular calls with a rep from Microsoft, and I shared with the person that we are looking at what solutions might be available to us to include and expand upon the operational efficiencies. And I actually started off the question thinking of doing that on-prem, but then he recommended that, hey, why don't you look at what Office 365 has to offer? And so my initial concern was, wait, doing the whole migration does not sound like an easy move, so I would definitely need some help there. And that's when they recommended that we talk to New Signature. New Signature came with a lot of high recommendations, and the reviews I read about New Signature were definitely way up there. So I wanted to start off the conversation. That's really when I got in touch with Nathan and the team, and they convinced me that this would be a good move for us to make, and that we should seriously consider it. But even then, it wasn't something that we just dived into right away. We actually did a small pilot study to do an evaluation of what would it take specifically in our environment, given the kind of things that we have and our objectives. And that was a very, very helpful exercise, because it helped me also kind of get a preview of the type of challenges that we will have, the type of, mess that we already have in our environment that would need to be cleaned up, before we can even do some of these things. And it took me quite a bit of time to get things organized and get stuff ready for migration. But the guidance and the help that I had from New Signature and the team definitely made the process much easier to work through. And so that with that analysis in hand, I was able to go and make the case to my senior management to really seriously consider and allow me to go forward with a big change like this. It wasn't easy. It wasn't something that that happens very easily. But definitely, it's been one of our more exciting achievements within the as we are going through the migration right now. I'm getting more and more positive responses back from people saying, this works absolutely fine, and they're all happy with the solution. So that's what I'm going to use as a base to launch more and more such initiatives in the future.
That's excellent. So I think that answers decision-making process, what else you were considering, ultimately why you decided on Office 365 and New Signature in particular. So can you tell me a little bit about your experience working with New Signature so far?
Sure. As you know, like I said earlier, our experience with New Signature has definitely been very good, and I'm very pleased with the team that we've had to work with. It's been like they've been very informed, well informed, well aware of the situation, the challenges that we might come across, and they've given me a heads up saying, okay, this is going to happen, so don't freak out. This is expected, and that definitely helped. We've had some hiccups along the way, which was purely because of the way our own data was completely all over the place, and that's been, like I said, it's evolved over the last 10 years with different people coming in and doing different kinds of things with the way they wanted to organize information. And so there was no straightforward path for us to say, okay, we're just going to do it this way, and that's it. Everything gets done in that manner. But then the New Signature and the team that we had, they really helped break it down to say, okay, why don't we do this set, which is in a straightforward way, let that take this approach. And then they gave us different alternatives and different ways to handle the different situations, and it was pretty useful to have it broken down in that manner, because then I was able to make decisions to say certain things we're just not going to do because it's way too complicated, and we don't need that in our environment anymore. So the way the transition happened, it actually helped us clean up a lot of our mess. We are in a much more organized, state right now, and it definitely makes, my life easier, knowing that things are in order and they're not, I don't know where to go look. I don't have those kind of situations anymore. I have one interface. I can go look at what's going on and, respond to any of the questions that come up. So that's been the kind of experience that we've had, and there have been a lot of lessons learned, things that we were able to figure out that, oh, okay, the kind of setup that we have where we've got almost 10 or 12 different domains that we were using for different email IDs, and how they need to be set up and how they should be looked at. But at the same time, it prompted us to ask the question internally to say, do we really need all this complexity? Do we really need to have so many different email IDs that people are using, or can we just start reducing all of that complexity? And in the process, by all the guidance that we got, it definitely helped us streamline our work process, streamline the way we've got things organized here, and definitely get a much more efficiently working setup in our environment.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you how it has impacted your day to day, so you're ahead of me.
Yeah, in fact, that question I'm not ready to answer yet completely because we haven't yet finished our migration. But the work that we had set up with New Signature and the way we had sort of laid out our contract, the engagement was that they would help us migrate the first 300 mailboxes, and then the remaining, and that was mainly because we had over 1,000 mailboxes in our system, which when I looked at them, I was like, almost 500 of these can just be deleted. We don't need them anymore. So, but it was taking quite a while for me to get all the right approvals in place and all the right confirmations to say yes, all these can be deleted. So we didn't want to slow down the work that New Signature had started working on. So we agreed that, okay, like the 300 mailboxes that I have confirmed as as being in use, let them go ahead and migrate those, and then they can teach us how to do the rest of the migration, and do the handoff to us, and my team can continue doing the rest of the work. As we get confirmations, we would just keep migrating them one by one, or in batches, and that way we would be able to clean out and move only the things that are definitely in use, and not bring forward any of our old baggage that we don't need to have with us. And so that's really what we're doing right now. I think we've done more than 85 to 90% of the migration. Now it's just the tail end which remains. It's like, we just want to make sure we're not going to close anything that would impact business or shut down stuff that should not be shut down. And so that's really where we are at this point of time. But more or less, I would say we're 90% completed with the work.
Gotta reach for a Kleenex. I don't know what it is about Fridays in the DC area, like Allergy Friday or something.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It needs to stop. So, I feel like I've got a pretty good story to tell here. We hit all of the high notes. Anything in particular that you wanted to add on, or anything you feel that is interesting or unique about the story, or what you guys have done?
So I would say that USGBC being the kind of organization that we have, and the sort of the role that we play in the industry, USGBC is a council of more than 14,000 member companies that are working in the green building industry, and we continue to be sort of a point of reference in terms of how we do things and the processes that we create, and how we manage different technologies and things like that. So a lot of times these kind of initiatives and moves that we make end up having a larger effect, because our members are looking at what we're doing, and they usually replicate the kind of moves that we make, because they understand that we've got this complexity in our environment and they've got similar complexities. So it kind of builds upon each other's experience there. So that's definitely one of the things that we always have in mind when we make these decisions, to say it's not just about how we're looking at things, but how does it impact our overall ecosystem, which is not just USGBC, but all the other 14,000 companies out there.
I think that's a really important point. I mean, you want to have a good experience not just for yourself, but so that you
Right.
have something to recommend because they
Exactly.
will look to you to say, hey, what are you guys using?
Exactly. Not just that. I mean, it's also for people to understand that, these things cannot be taken for granted. It's not an easy thing, but at the same time, there are partners like New Signature, and there's so much support available from Microsoft to really make these things happen. And that was one of the big things why even to initially when we got into this relationship with New Signature, I was like, we do want to do a case study because this is what people will come and ask us for. So together, if we can make something that tells the story of what it means to go through this process, what does it take, how do you go out and do these things, it definitely is going to be a useful resource for a lot of people out there that I know are looking at us to say, what are you doing and how are you going about doing those things.
So, any advice you would give to somebody who is not currently in Office 365 or in the cloud who is considering it?
I would say this is, and my advice to anybody who's considering moving to the cloud or, even looking at different solutions, including Office 365, would be to take a step back, understand what your organization is doing, how you're doing things, what your objectives are, and also figure out, what level of operational pain you currently have, because things will be different when you move to the cloud with a lot of these solutions. They may not completely remove the pains that you have. They likely be different kinds of issues and pains that you'll have to deal with, but it definitely is much easier and much more in your control when you're able to go log onto a system from anywhere anytime, and you don't really have to be in a specific environment or be locked down to a data center. So those kind of things are definitely improved, but at the same time, you have to get over the fact that you will be losing control of the infrastructure and the kind of things that you've had control over all this while. And so you have to trust the providers and go with the faith that companies like Microsoft are doing all they can to make sure that these services are going to stay up and running. And that's really, it's a mindset shift. It's an attitude shift that needs, not just a technology shift.
That was a great soundbite. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, let me just make sure that I got all of my questions. I'm trying to think about it as, okay, my web editor who is in Albuquerque, for some reason, he doesn't know anything about your migration. He doesn't know
Right.
anything about USGBC. What else would he want to include? And I feel like we've got a really good, compelling, interesting story here. So
Okay.
I thank you very much for this. I think it was super easy for me. I didn't have to travel all around DC in the 85-degree weather
I
and
know.
humidity and allergies and whatnot. So I really appreciate this. And I am going to stop the recording.
Okay.